And we'll begin reading verse number 24 in just a second. And it is a privilege to be able to open the Word together with you again this morning. It's in Matthew chapter 13. We are in the midst of a series right now on the stories of Jesus. Jesus is a master teacher. He's a master storyteller. And we're in this section in Matthew's gospel where Jesus actually tells about 8 stories in a row. He tells them in a boat. He's sitting there in the cove, Sower's Cove, the parables. We saw the picture last week where Jesus is teaching this. And he's going to go on like a riff about 8 parables back to back to back that he's going to share with these folks. I'm only going to do 3 of them, but we're in our second one of those in Matthew 13 this morning. And he's telling these parables. That word parable actually means, you can look up the kind of the root phrasing of it. Same word we get to compare from, to compare to parable. Okay, a parable, Jesus often introduces them by saying the kingdom of heaven is like unto, right? He's comparing spiritual truths with some real gritty, everyday kind of stories. And he uses things like weddings and coins and sheep and a father and a son or baking bread, or a lot of them agricultural. We're in our second farmer one this morning. All these kinds of things. And the mastery that Jesus shows in teaching is he uses these things because they kind of tear down our defenses. We're much more open to receiving a story about a farmer who had lots of wheat. He had to tear down barns and build bigger barns than we are for Jesus to say, hey, be generous, right? It's much easier for us to hear, hey, there was a farmer who went out and cast some seed, and some fell in ground that thrived. Some fell on ground where there was these wheat. We get that versus Jesus is saying, hey, your hearts are hard, right? He uses these stories to kind of break under the surface of our defenses, to teach us about the kingdom, to teach us about God, to teach us what we believe about life. This morning's parable is uniquely suited to what we're going through right now in our world, what really the past several years of experiences in our world have been like. He's going to talk this morning about the reality of evil that exists in the world and what Christians are to do in response to it. He's going to teach us about the patience of God, the reality that one day God will judge evil. And even though the world is crazy right now, God will one day make it right. And that's a great should be a great solace to us in the midst of what is a pretty crazy season. He's telling us these things to remind us. In church, I know a lot of us could use that reminder. We're in the middle of an anxious, fear-filled, divisive, angry world right now. We're wrestling with fear and dishonesty and loneliness, and all these things are spurred from out, and they're also coming within us. And maybe you're asking questions like, "What, God, why aren't you fixing this?" And God, why don't you do something? Or God, why are you quiet? Or God, why are you silent? Don't you see what's happening? And we get to parables like this where we see that Jesus is doing something. Jesus doesn't give us a lecture. Jesus doesn't give us even a sermon. Jesus gives us a story. And that's where we begin. Matthew chapter 13, verse 24. Let's see this parable that Jesus has for us this morning. The Bible says, another parable he put forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while he slept, his enemy came and sowed tares or weeds among the wheat, and then he went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared also the tares. So the servants of the householder came and said unto the farmer, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in your field? From whence came the tares? He said unto them, An enemy has done this. The servant said unto him, Do you want us then to go and gather them up? Verse 29, but he said, Nay, lest while you gather up the weeds, you root up also the wheat that is with them. Let both grow together until the harvest, and in the time of harvest I will say to the reapers, Gather you together first the tares, bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. So, pretty simple story about a farmer who owns a field and goes out the beginning of the season and begins to plant good seeds. But like every good story, there's not only a hero, there's a villain, right? And so another guy comes in, right? The antagonist, if you're modern, the Thanos, okay? Or if you're more my season, Lex Luthor. Or if you're a dork like me, Sauron from Lord of the Rings, right? He comes in, this enemy of your choosing, and he goes into the middle of the night and not only plants the bad seeds, which the farmer did, he comes in with weeds. And he plants weeds in the midst of this guy's field. The word actually for weed here is the word zizania, and it's actually a specific type of weed that actually, as it grows, begins to look and act exactly like wheat. So it's very similar. There's actually rules on the laws, on the Roman law books, that you could not plant zizania in somebody else's field. Like, evidently there was some kind of agricultural mafia of some kind, agricultural sabotage, where they would come in and destroy other people's crops by planting weeds in with their wheat. So he tells the story, a guy plants his seeds, and he plants good seeds, but someone else comes in the middle of the night and plants bad seeds, and the workers wake up and they see, a few weeks, months later, that there's weeds all throughout the field. And so they ask the farmer, what do you want us to do about it? Well, did you plant good seeds? Are you sure they weren't expired, right? Did you plant the right kind of seed to get us wheat? What happened here? Do you want us to go tear up all of these weeds? As they would grow up together, obviously the weeds would be taking nutrients from the wheat. They're taking life from them. And then they ask them these questions. Did you sow good seed? Basically asking, are you a good farmer or a bad farmer? Do you know what you're doing? Second question they ask is, why is there so much weeds in the field? Or why are there weeds and wheat? And then in verse 28, they say, hey, do you want us to take care of this? Do you want us to go out and tear up all of the weeds? What do you want us to do? As the farmer says, no, don't. I don't want you to do anything. He says, don't get rid of the weeds. He says, let the wheat and the weeds grow together. Because if you go out right now and pull up all the weeds, you're going to pull up the wheat with it. You're going to pull up all the good with all the bad. Obviously, the roots are all intertwined and connected. You're not going to be able to really be able to do that. So let them grow until the harvest time. We'll tear it all down, and we'll separate at that point the weeds over here and the wheat over here. We'll take the weeds and we'll burn it, and the wheat we'll take into the barn. All right, you're dismissed. We all get the meaning of that, right? The disciples were confused like we are. Like, what is Jesus talking about? He says the kingdom of heaven is like this. This farmer who has an enemy, and the enemy is sowing a counterfeit seed, and the folks are coming and they're asking these questions. The good news is we're not the only ones confused by that. The disciples were too. Look down at verse number 36. Jesus, what are you talking about? Then Jesus sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, would you declare unto us the parable of the tares or the weeds of the field? So he answered and said unto them, he that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. So the first sower is Jesus. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the weeds are the children of the wicked one. So, verse 39, the enemy that sowed them is the devil. Okay, so let's recap really quickly. We have two sowers in that passage. We have the Son of Man, Jesus, and we have the devil. Okay, those are the two sowers. You have two different kinds of seeds. You have seeds that Jesus calls the sons of the kingdom. Those are followers of Jesus, right? Those are believers in God. Then you also have sons of the wicked one. So two sowers, two seeds. But look what he says in verse 38. The field is the world. So two sowers, two seeds, one field. Okay, let's keep going. Verse number 40. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be at the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels. They shall gather out his kingdom all things that offend and them that do iniquity, and they shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Then he says that same phrase from last week. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Jesus, let me explain. I'm the sower. I've sowed good seeds. He calls those good seeds sons of the kingdom. But he also says, and we'll be really clear this morning, there is a very real enemy. That there is an enemy, and he calls him the devil in this passage, that is in our world sowing what we'll call sabotaging seeds, evil seeds. And those sabotaging seeds are meant to steal life from the sons of the kingdom. And one of the really interesting takeaways that I got this week in studying and getting ready was that Jesus explains every part of this story to his disciples except the answers to the questions that the workers asked. He never gave them the answers of, are you a good farmer? He never gave them the answers of, what should we do about it? He kind of answers that through his description of the story. And I think what he does by that is kind of highlighting their questions. For me, he brought them to the forefront because I think there are three questions that you and I still ask today. So what we're going to do for the rest of our time together is we're going to ask those three questions. Same three questions that these workers in the field asked the farmer. The same three questions I think many of us are asking our God today. Okay? What do we do? Why is there so much evil in the world? Why is God letting this happen? First question. How can there be so much evil in our world? How can there be so much evil? I don't have the time this morning, or really I don't feel the need to explain to you that we have a lot of evil things and evil that exists in our world, okay? Turn on the news, open your phone, it's everywhere, okay? That there is obviously things going on in our world today that are very much opposed to the truth of what Jesus says is the way to live, the truth of the reality of Scripture. That's very obvious, okay? I don't need to read all of the news headlines. Past week, 10 days ago, there was a law passed in California where my wife and I live that children in the school system can transition their gender without telling their parents, okay? You see that in your mind. For me, my mind just kind of blows up. Like, I don't, what is this? Like, what is the structure? This is obviously opposed to what Jesus has said the lifestyle of a follower of Jesus is to be like, of what the home is supposed to look like, of what the image of God is supposed to be within us. It's I can give you thousands of other examples, right? That this is obviously not right. This is obviously, I would define it, the Bible defines it as evil. There is so much evil in our world. Why is it there? We open our eyes, you scroll your phone, you turn on the TV, and we see it. Verse 38 tells us the field is the world, the good seed of the children of the kingdom, the tares or the weeds are the children of the wicked one. Where does it come from? Verse 39, the enemy that sowed them is the devil. Essentially, he's saying that the work of the enemy is to spoil, is to sabotage, is to plant seeds in our world that look good, but don't bear the fruit of life, they bear the fruit of death. If you go all the way back to Genesis 3, the original temptation, right, with Satan and Adam and Eve. You know, he slithers up with the fruit of the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, and he presents it to Eve and, you know, tempts her with what says it's good to look upon. It was enticing, the knowledge that she would possess. He tempts her with something that is attractive. You know, it's interesting. He didn't come with a dirty, old, spoiled, nasty-looking fruit. Right? Sarah and I were out of town for a couple weeks. You know, missed a couple things in the fridge. You get home and you're like, I'm not going to eat that, right? This does not look good anymore, right? This isn't something that we are no longer tempting to you. That's not what Satan does. He doesn't, you know, come up with this enticement of, hey, do evil. Hey, be a bad person, right? Do bad things. That's not how the tempter comes. He is a deceiver, and he's a good deceiver, which means he's crafty enough that he just doesn't come out with a full-on, blatant assault usually. He's usually trying to cover it enough truth that we don't really pay attention to it. So he gives us kind of half-truths, sort of truth, just enough flavor of truth. So if we're busy or distracted, we don't quite see the lie that's under the surface that the tempter is trying to get us. But I hope you guys realize this morning the half-truth of Satan, any half-truth, is a full lie, right? So he tempts us with these things. Because if you notice the message of our world, they don't put on the news and TV commercials and advertisements, be a bad person, do evil things, okay? That's not how they attract, that's not how they're tempted. Largely, they're saying, hey, you need to be a good person. They just don't define good the way the Bible defines good. Hey, be a nice person, be good, right? The message is something along the lines of, hey, do good, but if you don't do good the way that I define good, or the way that you say we ought to do good, then in fact you're evil, right? And so we kind of buy into that all of this, hey, I'm just trying to be a nice person, and I'm trying to do what everybody else needs me to do, and all of a sudden we realize along that way, we're actually the ones committing evil. And all of a sudden we find ourselves in asking questions of, like no one on the news is saying, hey, murder, good. Or, stealing, good. Racism, good. Nobody says this, okay? That's not how that's not how it works. People aren't saying, hey, losing jobs, good. But there's all this sort of hatred and anger. Where's it coming from? If no one's defining these things as good. I think what happens often is in our hearts, we're believing these half-truths and these half-lies, and we have to realize that any fruit of evil in this world comes from an enemy that is actively in opposition to God. He is sowing seeds of darkness in our world. We don't base goodness on what others say is good. We are to base goodness on what the Bible says is good. The goodness of Jesus, what that defines as good. And because of that, when there's chaos around us, we can find peace and assurance in Jesus that ultimately he defines what is right. Because if we don't, we find ourselves really confused, really discouraged. Well, what's going on? Why is this falling apart? Why is there evil in our world? I think Jesus gave us this parable so you wouldn't be surprised. Like, yes, there's two sowers. And yes, in our world, there are two seeds in the same field. There are things that are springing up in our world that are not from the Lord, that they are from the evil one, that they're here to steal and to kill and destroy, which is what John's gospel tells us the mission plan of the evil one is. That's his aim. That's his goal, is to bring harm. By the way, the works of the enemy is not just, it's not politics, it's not sickness, it's not disease or acts. The real goal of the enemy is to use these kinds of things to destroy. What's the goal of the other sower? To destroy the good seed that's existing in the world. The purpose of the sowing of evil, the purpose of the devil's existence in this world, his goal is to destroy God's people. His goal is to oppose what God is doing in this world. He came to steal and to kill and to destroy. So Jesus starts off by saying the reason there's evil in this world is because there's an enemy who is actively working to sow seeds of sabotage even amongst God's people, to tear apart God's people. So the witness of the church becomes mute, so we can't go forward. So Satan is active. First, why is there evil in the world? Because we have an enemy who's actively working in opposition to the Lord. Second question that usually flows from that is if we have this enemy, there's evil in the world, how is God still good? Is God still good? Look at verse number 27. It's the second question. Second question they ask. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? Then why does it have weeds? From whence then hath it tares? It says, hey, Master, are you sure you looked at the label correctly? Did you really plant good seeds in the field? Now, they're asking a question here about the seed, but ultimately it's less a question about the quality of seed and more of a question of the quality of farmer. Hey, do you know what you're doing? Are you aware of what's going on? Because if you're a good farmer, you wouldn't purposefully sow bad seed. So really what they're asking the farmer is, are you good? Can you be trusted as our employer? Can you be trusted as the farmer of this land? Did you put these weeds here? If not, why is it that there's so many weeds here? And the same thinking goes in a relationship with the Lord of, God, can you still be good and there be this much evil in the world? Because our minds can kind of only compute one of two things. God can either be good and not all-powerful, which means he wishes he could eradicate the evil, right? God is good, God is loving, God is right, but he's just not strong enough to eradicate the evil. Or he's strong enough, he has the ability to eradicate evil, but for some reason, he's not good enough to do it. So where's the misconnection? Can God be good in a world that is full of evil? Well, I think that's part of what this parable teaches us. Jesus teaches us three things about God that helps us to define his goodness even in a world that is sinful. First thing he teaches us is that God is patient. God is patient. Look at verse 30. The answer of the farmer to these guys, do you want us to go and rip these up? And he says, no, let them both grow together until the harvest. He's patient. Now, I struggle with this, okay? This is something I'm not good at, is patience. This past week, we were here most evenings because of VBS, and so we'd get here and it'd be earlier. We'd miss dinner. The kids would go. So it was a lot of not great dining options last week, if I'm honest, for the dinner at the Browning household. So at one point we got here, and thankfully, because the awesome team we had here, I really didn't have anything to do, okay? So I'm here, and I'm walking around high-fiving people, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to go in my office and work. And I was in there working, and Sarah said she's hungry. So she said, I know this isn't wise. I know I'm going to regret this, but I don't feel good. I kind of want Taco Bell. Okay, so I know Taco Bell well, and you guys have heard enough illustrations about Taco Bell in my life to know I'm fully aware of the menu and the options I have, right? So we ordered this, and I said, you know what, that Taco Bell's slow, right? I know this one well, and so if you're going to go, I'm going to mobile order from the app. If you didn't know, it has an app. I can rack up the rewards and get my free chalupas, okay? So I mobile ordered, and I said, I'm going to go. I'll leave in like 10 minutes because it's still not going to be ready when I get there. And so when I show up, I'll get there. So I pull up, and I walk in, and I'm waiting the mobile order. I've got a New Hope Baptist Church t-shirt on, which means you have to be good, okay? If you're going to be unkind, don't wear your New Hope t-shirt while you do it, okay? So I'm in there, and I'm waiting for the food, and I'm being patient, being nice, and the next person walks in, and he orders. Hey, how you doing? Good. He gets his food before I do. I mean, that's not right. I'm waiting. I think it's like 25 minutes once I got there to finally get the fry. I just struggle. Like my blood starts getting, why? I don't have anywhere else to be. If I came back here, I'd be sitting here doing nothing, right? But I don't want to wait, right? There's something in us that we're not patient. We don't understand the beauty of patience. There's something in our current cultural climate with everything we get now and quickly, right? You're watching a YouTube video and it has to buffer. My kids, like they're watching a video or they watch a show on TV. Why isn't it working in the first 2 seconds? I'm like, you don't know dial-up, bro. Like we would wait hours for a photo, and you're here like you want a full hour-long, Disney movie in 3 seconds. This is not how it works, right? We don't want to wait. But God is patient. He's patient. Verse 3, let both grow together until the harvest. Now notice, God is patient, but he's not passive. And that's good news for us, okay? We'll see more about that in a second. But one of the main themes of this story is that of patience. The workers needed to have patience. God here in the story exhibits patience. Now we know that God is probably looking out on the field and seeing the wheat grow and the weeds grow, and it's probably bothering him. Like that's not what he wanted to see. That's not the design originally intended. But he's also not going to rush to harvest too soon. So he says in verse 30, let them both grow together. Let them grow until the harvest. By the way, I love that there's an expiration date, that there's an end date of this. They will grow together until that day. Now, that day is the day we just sang about, right? There will be a day when all are bowing before him. That's the day of the harvest. So he says, hey, let them grow together until the harvest. Right now, for many of us, things are confused. There's wheat and there's weeds and there's evil and there's good, and it's chaotic and it's discouraging and there's suffering. The good news for us this morning, as we get frustrated, we have to recognize God is not passive, but he is patient. There will be a day that God will judge between the wheat and the weeds. But that day is coming, and God is patient because God cares more about the preservation of his people, those sons of the kingdom growing to maturity, than he does to immediately eradicate the weeds. He cares about the preservation of his people. So he says, let them grow up together so that we don't pull the roots of the good out and the attempt to pull out the roots of the bad. He's patient. But number two statement about the goodness of God is there is coming a day where God will hold evil accountable. There's a coming accountability for wickedness. Verse 40, as therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels. They shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and then them which do iniquity. And they shall be cast in a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Now, we can be honest. Sometimes these judgment scenes that Jesus paints for us can make us feel a little bit uneasy. We understand the Bible doesn't teach us that God is some sort of raging monster looking forward to the day of sentencing people to eternal damnation. He's not this monster longing for it, but at the same time, the Bible doesn't teach us that God is this indulgent, benevolent, sweet grandpa in the sky that says you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, and have all the candy you want, and do whatever you need to do, whatever makes you happy. He's not that either. He's not haphazard in his judgments, nor is he indulgent in what he allows. And because of that justice of God, he is currently enduring the evil that is here until that final day, but he is not neglecting it. There will be a day. There will be a judgment of all that is evil and sinful and broken. And that is the goodness of God that drives him to that. See, how can a good God send people or punish people for the decisions they make? Let me say it this way. There's within each of us a desire for justice. Someone was to break into your house while you're at church this morning and take things from your home. You would feel a certain sense of, I've been violated, I've been taken advantage of. You'd want some sense of justice. Let's say they catch that individual and they place him in front of a judge and a jury and they say, we know he did it, he's got your stuff, but you were wanting to have that yard sale anyways, and you have some stuff you need to get rid of, so we just don't think it's a big deal. He probably helped you out actually, so we're just going to let him go and not worry about it. We'd have a sense of injustice, right? That's not right. He did something to us. He took something from us. We have that peace in us. That's because we're made in God's image. God is a just God. The evil that is done in this world, these sons of darkness that are being planted in this world, if they don't turn to faith and trust in Jesus Christ, there's a coming accountability day where the Bible talks about an eternal separation in a place called hell. And it's a place of suffering and a place of separation from God. And he says that is the end destination for those who are opposed, those who are the seeds that are being planted by the evil and in opposition to the truth. That should make us, one, desire every weed that we know that they'd become a wheat, right? That through God's forgiveness and love and compassion, we'd see them come to faith in Jesus. But also it should help us to know that right now it might feel like God is doing nothing, or it might feel like he is not actively bringing forth justice in this world. There is coming a day of accountability that God will bring judgment to the world. There'll be a separating day on that final judgment day when God sees the harvest, that which is a weed and that which is wheat. And so, church, we hope and we pray and we believe that the God who created us will one day eradicate and condemn the evil that we feel every day. The evil that we see, the evil that frustrates us, the evil that is so opposed to what God is doing in us. There is coming a day when God will take care of it. Well, I wish God felt it. How much more could God feel the evil in the world than when God felt every evil deed, every sinful deed that's ever been committed ever upon himself at the cross? He's felt it. He's felt all of it. So why? What? There's a reason. According to this parable, there's the reason that he is delaying is for the preservation of the good seed that's been planted. That for whatever reason, there's a work he's doing in his people. There's a work he's doing in this world in the midst of all the evil that he's letting continue so that we might continue to grow, that we might come to full maturity. So the fruit of our lives would be good, that his church might be full. And in God's timing and in God's wisdom, he will bring about the judgment. So how do I know God is still good? Well, one, he's patient. He's patient. The Bible talks about how God is not is long-suffering, not willing that any should perish, but all should come to repentance, that he is patient until that last day, waiting for those to come to faith in him. He's coming on that last day for accountability for the evil. But thirdly, we see the goodness of God and the fact that there is a coming reward for the righteous. Look at verse 43. Then on that day, verse 43, the righteous will shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Sometimes we get so involved in what's happening today that we forget about what's going to happen on that day. We get so sucked into the news cycles and the drama and the politics and the turmoil and the evil that we forget that there is coming a day, verse 43, that we will shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of our Father. There is a coming kingdom that is promised to us. And we may feel this morning like we've suffered for so long. We've endured so much evil. We've experienced so much brokenness in this world. Maybe we've grown pessimistic. I know I've gotten there. We've grown cynical. We've grown harsh. There's never going to be any change. No good's happening. There's only evil that's existing in this world. Could real change actually happen? You kind of get stuck in the fog of it all, where it's like, this stinks and it's always going to stink and it never will not stink, right? Maybe you remember that when you get sick. You get sick for like 3 or 4 days and you think, I'm just always going to be sick. Like, this is the new reality for me, is now I'm sick. I'm the biggest sick. I'm a baby, okay? I'm pain I can handle. I broke a bunch of bones. I can do that. Sickness, I'm done. Like, runny nose, put me on the couch, 4 days. I can't get up. Kids, be quiet, serve me hand and feet. I need all of it, right? Like, this is my reality now. I am now runny nose, Andrew, and this is now going to be my existence from here on out. I'm moved to the couch, and I'm like, this is now me, right? Maybe in the hospital for a couple days because you had a surgery or you were sick. You just think, well, I'm never getting out of here. This is where I'm always going to be from here on out. And you're just so stuck in the fog of your current existence that you don't know something's going to change. And sometimes we get so sucked into the drama of the 24 hours news cycles. We get so sucked into the chaos of the evil that exists in our world that we don't take a second to think about the fact this is a temporary reality. There is coming a day where we will shine like the sun. Now, if you were to walk up to someone after church and say, hey, you're really shining today, I don't know if that's a positive or a negative in our culture. Like, if you're really shiny, that probably just means you have a sunburn or something. Like, we don't think about that as a positive way. What this is you're existing in the glory of God, okay? You're existing in the way that you were meant to be existing. And in the moment we're in right now, where all I can see is weeds, All I can see is the shadows. All I can see is the evil. And then here comes Jesus and says, in those moments, don't focus so much on the seeds that are planted that are evil. Focus on the good work God is doing. Notice, there's 2 seeds and 2 sowers. We already talked about that in this passage. But 9 times out of 10, when you study this passage of Scripture, 90% of the focus is why are there bad seeds? And there's hardly ever any focus on there is an active work by the Son of Man, Jesus Christ, in this world, planting seeds of the kingdom right now. There is good happening. Yes, there's evil, and yes, there's brokenness, and yes, there's confusion, but Jesus is also at work in our world. You can see last week these 100 or so kids singing songs about Jesus, learning about, these are little seeds of the kingdom, right? This is God still moving forward. There are seeds of the kingdom being planted all over the world this morning. People coming to faith and trust, and he's continuing to work. So he says, stop looking so much at the sabotage and look at the harvest that's coming. Yes, there's evil, and yes, there's weeds, and yes, there's brokenness, and yes, there's division, but there's also so much good that Jesus is actively doing in our world. So take your eyes for a second off of all of the sabotage and focus on what Jesus is doing. Because God has already started the process of setting this world right. You're not done yet. He's not done yet. He's planted the seeds in our hearts, and there is coming a harvest day when we are mature. He's in process. He planted the seeds at the cross, where he conquered Satan and sin. He planted the seeds at the resurrection, when he rose from the dead and conquered death. He planted seeds at the ascension, where he ascends to the right hand of God and sends his Holy Spirit to help us and fill us. He planted the seeds in the early church, where the church starts preaching and declaring the truth of who Jesus is, and the gospel goes forward and spreads around the world. He planted the seeds in each and every one of our hearts who know Jesus, that we might be transformed and made in the image of his Son, because there is coming, 1 Peter tells us, for each of us who are in Jesus, an unfading crown of glory. That's what awaits us. There's a moment in Revelation 21, again, we just sang about it, where he will literally wipe away every tear from your eye. You know where those tears are from? They're from the evil that's existing in our world. They're from Satan's attempts to discourage and bring damage and bring division to the sons of the kingdom that exist in this field as well. That's the result. That's what we're crying from. We're crying from evil's effects in our world. We're crying from the effects of brokenness and sin and disease. That's why we're weeping. And there is coming a day, Revelation 21, where Jesus will wipe away every tear. And sometimes we think of that in a cosmic way, but it's a personal way. That God will wipe away every single tear. That is a personal dealing with the evil that we have experienced. The weight that was put on us, the hurt that we have received from evil. Like a dad would come and wipe away tears from the face of his kid. That's what he says. He's going to come a day where all the evil that has existed in our world, that has broken us and wounded us and hurt us, there is coming a day where Jesus will literally wipe every tear away from your eye. No more crying, no more death, no more pain, no more evil. Psalm 16 says, in the presence of Jesus, there's only fullness of joy. And one day, you and I, as wheat in God's field, we will be complete. We'll be made conformed in the image of his Son. And when that happens, Jesus says we will shine. We'll shine forth like the sun in the kingdom of our Father. So just take a second every now and then. And maybe you're so zoned in right now that the perspective of eternity is so far from you to think about that reality. That everything in history is working towards that point. Everything in your life, Romans teaches us, is working together for that point. Your ultimate good, your ultimate glory in Jesus. He's working all of history towards that. That at some point in your life, you, as an individual, will shine like the sun because of the righteousness of Jesus Christ that is in you. That is not a verse for somebody else, that's a verse for you. That is going to happen to you if you are in Jesus. For those of us who aren't weeds this morning, those of us who are planted in the Word of God, those of us who are growing in the growth of God, that he's bearing fruit in our life because of our faith in Jesus, one day you will shine like the brilliance of the sun. So yes, it's dark right now. And yes, it's confusing right now. And yes, there are tears right now. But there is coming a day where there will not be anymore. And so we wait with expectation on that day. And that kind of answers our last question. The workers ask, hey, why is there weeds in our field? Why is there evil in the world? Hey, did you plant good seed? Are you still a good farmer or a bad farmer? And then the last question, hey, what do you want us to do about all the weeds? So that's our third question. What do we do now? So if I know there's 2 sowers, there's 2 seeds, there's 1 field. I know, Andrew, now Jesus is sowing seeds of the kingdom and Satan is sowing the seeds of the evil one, and they're existing in this world. And there's coming a day with accountability. There's coming a day with reward. What do I do between now and then? Look at verse number 28. He said unto them, an enemy hath done this. Look how the servants respond. Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? In other words, should I go buy Roundup? Should I head to Home Depot? Should I go get the weeding gloves? Should we go get to work on pulling up all these weeds? What do we do? And the parable gives us 2 things to do. Number 1 is we wait confidently. We wait confidently. Look at he responds, says, no, don't go crazy on your weeding party here, okay? Lest while you gather up the weeds, you root up also the wheat that's with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. Look what the servants did. I love their eagerness here. I see that in so many of us as followers of Jesus. What do you want me to do, Jesus? There's evil in the world. I got it. Let's go. Let's get it out, right? There's this eagerness. There's this desire. The servants see all the weeds. They see all the evil, and they say, we got this, Jesus. We'll take care of it. We got this, God. I see there's evil in the world. Let me go get rid of it, right? I'm going to go on this mission. I'm going to personally, through my Facebook page, eradicate all evil, right? I'm going to get on it, right? They have this assumption that they have the knowledge and the ability to actually do this, to actually take out all of the weeds without actually harming the roots of the wheat, which any farmer is going to know this is impossible, right? These are intertwined at this point. The weeds are all interconnected. So yes, they're eager, but they're ill-informed. Yes, they're eager, but they're ill-equipped. And to be honest, they're a little bit self-involved to think they have this level of insight, to assume they would have the ability to distinguish and discern which is a weed and which is wheat. And so the master says, no, I want you to wait. I want you to wait. How do you wait? Wait with confidence that the farmer actually knows what he's talking about. That on that last day, it's all going to work out okay. That on that last day, he's going to be able to distinguish between weeds and wheat. Can I tell you something this morning? You and I, in our limited human understanding, we lack the capacity to see what God is actually doing in this world. We can't see it. Well, I feel like, no, that's a weed. That's an obvious weed. I know it's a weed. That's a bad weed. I can see all the fruit of the weed. That's a weed. And we don't know what God is doing in the heart of that weed. Because guess what? You were a weed. All of us were. Paul tells us that. Such were some of you before Jesus. All of us were in that condition. So if we just went around, I'm really glad they didn't pluck me up before I came to know Jesus. Right? So I don't know what God's doing. I don't know what God's doing amongst the people. I'm glad he didn't pluck me up. I'm glad he left me there and he transformed me and he saved me and he caused me to bear fruit. And we were weeds that led to death. And now he's saying, no, I've changed you. I've transplanted you. I've made you new. And somehow we got changed into this wheat and God transformed us and we're new. And now we want to go kill all the weeds. In the heart of Jesus is that all of those who are broken would come to faith in him. And so we endure patiently. Yes, there's evil. And yes, there's brokenness. But God still loves sinners. And God still loves those who are far from him. The likes of you and I and the likes of others. So he is patiently waiting. We get frustrated with that, though. Because I want this to go on my timetable. Like, man, I know, Andrew, you said the harvest is coming. But can the harvest be like tomorrow? I want the harvest to happen now. There's too much going on. There's too much evil. God needs to make this happen right now. But we have to be reminded this morning, heaven's not going to come through human effort. The evil in this world will not be eradicated through human effort. God is the only one with the power and the ability and the insight to ultimately be able to purge evil from this earth. So we wait confidently, waiting for that harvest day. Well, God will separate the right from the wrong. God will separate the weed from the wheat, and he will judge, and we trust him in those moments. We wait confidently. Now, it's not immediate, but it is imminent. And it's not immediate, but I do believe you could say it's inevitable that God will bring about the harvest. So you and I, what do? We wait. We wait. That's why I'm not that good at farming. There's a lot of waiting involved, right? seed planting and then waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting until you harvest that fruit. And we're sort of in our history right now, somewhere between seeds being planted and the harvest coming. And God tells us to wait with confidence that he knows what he's doing. But he also tells us, secondly, to wait proactively. What I'm not saying is that we don't do anything. Okay? I think that there's a responsibility each of us have with the current cycle that we're in our country. People have asked a lot of questions the last couple of weeks. What's the responsibility of a Christian politically? Your responsibility as a Christian American is to be involved in the political process as a Christian, right? Understand the truths of Jesus, understanding the Word of God. I was raised about as red, white, and blue as you can be raised, okay? My favorite holiday is the 4th of July. My dad was in the Air Force. I love it all, okay? I am red, white, and blue all the way to the core, okay? I love our country. I used to like the political process. I don't really like it that much anymore. But I used to like the speeches and the debates and the things like that. We should be involved. We should vote our biblical, we should speak that which is true, okay? But ultimately, we have to remind ourselves that we have a dual citizenship, and one should way outweigh the other, okay? We're believers in Jesus. Yes, we should be involved politically. Yes, we should speak the truth. Yes, we should be able to vote our conscience. But ultimately, my responsibility, the Bible talks a whole lot more about my relationship with my friends and family and church family and neighbors than it does my responsibility to a country. Romans chapter 12 talks a lot about this. I feel like the emotion of a lot of people the past couple of weeks is just an overwhelm. They don't know what to do. Like, I'm just overcome by whatever's happening. Whatever side people fall on, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking, you see the evil in our world, and it's just overwhelming us. But Paul tells us in Romans 12, do not be overcome with evil. I always thought of that in like a military way, like we're going to lose to evil. But it's not. It's being overwhelmed by evil. It's being overcome by evil. He says, no, don't be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. With good. So what are we called to do while we're waiting confidently? Do we just kind of let go and let God, like the t-shirt tells us, or the coffee mug, right? Don't do anything. Don't take any action to bring about God's good. No. Patience isn't passivity. Patience is activity. But it's doing so with confidence in who God is. And so you and I, what do we do in this period between now and then? We focus on the flourishing of the seeds that Jesus has planted. We focus on the flourishing of God's people. Just don't be overcome by evil, overcome evil with good. Some of us are in that place, man, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so perplexed. I'm so confused with all that's happening around us. He says, don't be overcome. How do we do that? Romans 12, he goes on in verse number 9 to tell us you do it through brotherly affection. In other words, some of us, I want to say this as nicely as I can, 24-hour news was not made for the flourishing of the human soul, okay? This didn't exist for the first several thousand years of the world. We realize that. And it doesn't exist now to keep you so informed. It exists now to sell advertiser money, okay? So some of us, we just leave it on, and our brains just get sucked into this cycle of drama and chaos and evil and bad news. And we think if I don't have it on for 4 hours, I'm going to miss something. So some of us remember, like, we had the news at night, and you had to wait for the day. And, you'll be okay. Some of us, we need to turn the news off and go talk to somebody. Brotherly affection. This is my favorite thing that after the chaos of last weekend, for 40, 50 of us last week, you know what we got to do? We got to be around one another and let brotherly affection exist. And serve one another and bless some kids and talk to one another and chat. That's the overcome evil with good. You have brotherly affection. You find somebody and serve somebody. Find somebody and love somebody. Verse 12 says, what do we do to be able to overcome evil with good? We rejoice in hope. Be patient in tribulation. Be constant in prayer. You don't overcome evil by responding to it in some kind of reactionary way. You overcome evil by rejoicing in the hope, waiting in confidence, patient in the tribulation, and praying. Verse 14 says we do it through blessing those who persecute us. That's about as different from our political cycles we can find, right? Bless those who are different than you. Bless those who oppose you. What's in us? When someone does evil to me, I want to do evil to them. I'm going to respond, right? You hit me, I'm going to hit you back. You hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. You wound me, I'm going to wound you. Or maybe I won't actually wound you, but I'll clap on the TV when someone else makes a jab at you, right? We find that joy in those that are against us. This is, no. He bless those who persecute you. You bless and do not curse. Verse 15 says, we overcome evil with good by rejoicing with those who rejoice and weeping with those who weep. Be far less involved in what's going on. I'm not saying you shouldn't be informed. I think we should be informed. But I think many of us were over-informed. Okay? We're at the point now where we need to step away from some of it and just go rejoice with some people who are rejoicing, and go weep with some people who are weeping, and look for some people we can care for. Hey, someone's life is going well, I'm going to rejoice with them. Man, they've got this trial they're going through, I'm going to weep with them. That's the real world response of how we exist between now and the harvest day. Verse 20, finally, how do we overcome evil with good? If your enemy is hungry, you feed him. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. Okay? Feed them, serve them. Ultimately, he's saying, be the people of God. Be the church. Be the people of Christ who love and rejoice and pray and bless and feed. And how long do we have to do that, Andrew? Until the harvest day. We just keep doing it. You keep serving. You keep waiting patiently. You keep waiting proactively by loving and caring for people. Until the day when God comes, and that day he will make you shine like the sun of the kingdom of the Father. And that's how we were ultimately made to be. When we're brought together on that final day, it'll be a great opportunity for us to show forth the beautiful, manifold wisdom of our God. So Jesus tells us a story, a very unique, simple story. Two farmers, son of man and the devil, two seeds, sons of the kingdom, the sons of the evil one field. What lesson do we take? One, stop being surprised that there's evil weeds in our field. Jesus told us this was going to happen. He told us evil is going to exist. He told us there is an enemy who's actively trying to sabotage and tear away from the good that Jesus is doing in this world. So what do? Well, I'm not going to get drawn off course. I'm trying to wait patiently. I'm trying to wait proactively. Remind myself of the coming day when he's going to eradicate all this sin, eradicate all this evil. There's a reward for those who wait on him. Trust in God's goodness and confidence in him, and bless people. Serve people. Ultimately, what is the answer? What's going on? I feel like I said this 15 times in the past 7 days. Trust God and be a light to people. Trust God and serve people. What are we supposed to do? You need to trust God and serve people. That's ultimately the response of any type of... Well, there's all this evil. Yes, there is. Absolutely, there's evil in this world. Well, I mean, should we take up... No. We trust God. We bless people. We trust God. We're a light for the kingdom. That's the call of God upon our lives. There is coming a day where God will ultimately take care of all of this. I'm going to trust in him. Trust in him. On that final day, he'll reward the righteous. Evil will be eradicated. And then for all of eternity, we praise and glorify the Son. On that day, we'll know he's good. We'll know he's beautiful. We'll know he's wise. And he will not stop being those things ever. And until that day, he's not going to stop planting seeds. He's continuing to plant seeds in this world, in your life, in our church, until that final day when the harvest comes, which is his goal, which is his glory, and ultimately the reward of his people. Okay, let's bow together for a word of prayer, and we'll be